Hello, and welcome to the Legal Marketing Brief, the series where we showcase attorneys from across the country and learn about the strategies they use to market successful practices. I'm John Simpson, CEO of Converted Marketing. Today, we're sitting down with Carl Hopkins. Carl practices bankruptcy law in both Arkansas and Oklahoma. Carl offers his perspective on the rise in bankruptcy filings and how he has adapted his practice to capture more business. So with that, we hope you enjoy our discussion with Carl. So practicing since 1992, what made you decide to become an attorney?
I had no family members that were attorneys. It just intrigued me. Practice of law and court practice and helping people and the study of law just intrigued me. And I went to law school and became an attorney.
Then, Carl, you actually have a pretty broad practice. So as I understand it, you work in bankruptcy, criminal defense, a little DUI work there, some estate planning, and family law. That's a broader set than we typically see. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you came to practice in those particular areas?
My main practice is bankruptcy law. That's mostly what I do, and I really enjoy it. Helping people in a time of trouble. A lot of people think they don't have any options, and they come in to see me, and we tell them what we can do, and it's not going to destroy their financial life or hurt them. It's going to help them. The different kinds of practices areas of law that I practice, I guess I just sort of fell into it. People would come in and need divorces and have criminal matters, and I just jumped in there and started doing those kinds of law.
I'm curious. We've talked to some bankruptcy lawyers recently, and definitely feels like there's an uptick in the number of bankruptcy cases. Are you seeing that there in Arkansas?
Yes, we are. Yeah, it's been slow since the COVID era, but it has picked up recently.
And Carl, if you had to generalize the causes of that increase in bankruptcy cases that are coming in the door, what do you think what do you think of the root causes of that?
Well, of course, there was the cost of living went up substantially, and some people lost their jobs, and they ran up credit cards during COVID, and subsequently, they're now in a place where they can't make those minimum payments on their credit cards anymore, and they need to file bankruptcy.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's consistent with sort of what we heard. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your clients. So, you've obviously been practicing for some time. What would your clients say about you when you're at your best?
Well, I hope they say that, I'm here for them. I lead them through the process, answer their questions. I give them my time to file bankruptcy and to answer their questions, because a lot of times they have a lot of questions,
Sure.
a lot of concerns. A lot of times you see people who file bankruptcy will have, well, my friend told me this. Or they'll do Google searches and find information that's not correct, and it concerns them. And I'm here to answer their questions, make them feel at ease, and it can be a daunting process.
I'm curious, when you're dealing with a bankruptcy case that comes in the door,
Mm-hmm.
how often is that the result of a client referral versus them finding you online? And the reason I ask is I'm just curious if somebody's potentially thinking about a bankruptcy, are they asking friends, or is that something that they, sort of want to keep to themselves?
They do ask friends, and friends will give them my name. But a lot of times people don't want anybody to know. They don't want family members to know that they're filing bankruptcy, or friends. And so most of my business comes from the internet.
So let me ask you a little about your practice. So you started practicing in the early 90s, it looks like. Can you walk us through the evolution of your practice over the last 30 years or so? And if there were any pivotal moments that sort of are obvious to you?
I initially started by taking over another attorney's office. So it was somewhat trial by fire. I had to just kind of jump in and start practicing, and there were cases that were already filed that I had to take over. In the 90s into the early 2000s, we were filing a lot of cases. And then the laws changed in 2005, which reduced the number of cases that were filed, and leading to today. We can go back to the COVID era where we saw some reduction in filings. And then recently, we've had an uptick as far as bankruptcy cases being filed.
In terms of sourcing of clients, I'm curious, what do you find to be the most successful marketing techniques that have helped you grow your practice?
Well, I think that my online advertising is the most important component. I'm very happy with it. It brings in the business.
And I'm curious, is that with online advertising, are you finding, what percentage of the time that you get an inbound inquiry, is it a quality inquiry? In other words, it's a client that if you had your choice, you would choose to take on?
Well, I'm getting quality leads. I'm going to say 9 out of 10 are quality leads that lead to attorney-client relationship.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And when you talk to these clients, I'm curious, when you get one of these inbound leads, do you find that they are often talking to other lawyers as well? Do you find that it stops the shop when they talk to you? What do they tell you, if anything, about their buying process?
Sometimes they're shopping around looking for attorneys, but a lot of times with the process of the lead through Convert It, it's just that they talk to me, they talk to my staff, and we're good to go.
And is that usually like as soon as they talk to you, it's almost like an instant they sign on with an engagement letter or something along those lines?
Yes. Within generally the same day, we're moving forward, and I have a great staff, and so we have a turnaround of typically if they get me all the documents that we need, and we have a substantial list of documents that are required by our bankruptcy trustee. We can get a turnaround of a couple of days, get them in, get them filed, and give them some relief.
Yeah, highly processized, and that sounds fantastic. And I'm curious if you found that if there are any best practices as it relates to the handling of those leads. So, for example, does your staff and yourself, how do you respond to those leads? Do they typically come in via the phone, and then one of you is picking up right away? Can you talk us through that intake process a little bit?
Typically phone. We do have some internet leads as well, but typically it's phone, and we try to answer as soon as they call because when they get to the point of calling an attorney for bankruptcy, they're in need. So they're really wanting to move forward at that point. And we're there to help them. So we want to make sure that we sometimes we miss a phone call, and it's our goal to call them back within a few minutes if we can.
Yeah, that's definitely a best practice in our mind. It's amazing how often in certain practices we hear that firms aren't getting back to them. They're like, "Oh, I get back to them within 24 hours," and we're like, they've probably already moved on at that point.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I joke with my mother that because I've been in the internet space for the last 24 years and working with law firms actually during that time. But my job, right, running a digital agency, did not exist when I graduated from college. In other words, like the internet wasn't really a thing when I graduated from college. This is something that's come around since I graduated. So it's not like I was trained at school to do this. And I'm sort of curious for you, when you look at how the evolution of your marketing, how that's also changed since you started your practice.
Well, initially it was Yellow Pages, which was very pricey, and at the time, really that was it. People would look in the Yellow Pages, which seems so outdated, obsolete now. We also did some TV advertising over the years, but To be honest, the internet advertising is where it is for me.
And do you find that the internet advertising, do you have a geographic area that I believe it's Arkansas and Oklahoma
Mhm.
that you're practicing in?
That's
Um,
correct.
what's the sort of radius around where you are that you can service clients that you receive leads from?
It's probably 100 miles or so radius from my location, and that goes into I'm right on the state line with Oklahoma, so that goes into Oklahoma and the northern part of Arkansas into sort of the central part of
Got it.
Arkansas as well.
And Carla, these days, post COVID, how often does a client want to meet with you in person, or via a channel like this? Has that shifted at all in the last 5 years or so?
It has. It has. Most of my meetings with clients are over the phone. Now we do have to meet at some point because we have to go over the petition, the bankruptcy petition, that is, and make sure that it's correct. I have to see them sign the petition. So we do that in person. But if we can't, we'll do that part of the practice over Zoom. So there are some clients that I never meet literally face to face, but most clients I will eventually see in the office. But most of my initial consultations are over the phone.
Do you believe that has that made you more efficient now that so much is over the phone versus maybe a more in-person type of process? What's the impact in terms of your practice?
It's a little bit faster uh, to deal with people over the phone. There's not coming into the lobby and then coming into my office and getting settled and that sort of thing. Call on the phone, we get right to business. And it's faster for them because a lot of times they're calling me during the lunch hour or on a break because they don't want to miss any work because they want to make as much money as they can to
Yeah.
survive. But it does streamline the process.
One of the things that we believe at Converted Marketing is that every attorney has a definition of what practice success looks like. And while it's oftentimes easy to say, oh, well, practice success means I'm making more money than I did the year before, what we found is that there's often something like different that they define as their practice success, that's more personal to them. And so I'm curious, as you look at your practice, how do you define success?
I define success as how many people I can help and how I can help them. There are people that come in to see me, and again, most of my focus is on bankruptcy. But people come in and they have foreclosure, and there's an auction date set tomorrow, and we've got to get a bankruptcy filed to stop that auction or to stop a repossession of their vehicle. Or we can also, if their car has been repossessed, we can actually get their car back if they come hire me as quickly as possible. Those are the things that I think are signs of success. How much I can help my client.
Maybe one more question, again, taking us in a different direction. If you were starting your practice today, what advice would you give to yourself around how to market your practice?
That's a good question. I think that the biggest piece of advice I would give myself is to market my practice. I think that when I was maybe younger, I didn't really understand how important marketing was. And there were times where I didn't really think about it in those terms. People don't just find you generally. You need to put yourself out there so they can find you. I think that's probably the most important piece of information I would give myself.
Makes sense. And certainly we like to hear that as well. What do you like to do when you're not helping your clients?
I like to get out and experience nature. I like to go hiking, kayaking, and there are times when in between appointments with clients that I'm in a small city and I'm on Main Street, and I'll just go walk up and down Main Street and experience the sun and outside. So that's what I like to do, and spend time with my family, of course.